Hello, my name is Michael Dandini. I am a developer out of the Esri, Washington, D.C. office in professional services.
And hi, I'm Nathan Heminger. I'm also with Esri Professional Services, and I also work with Dan Dini out of the Washington, D.C. office. We're both full stack developers working on a wide range of web projects.
And today we wanted to show you some of the tools that we are excited about using for our future web development.
Yes, and getting us started today, I wanted to take a look at some new capabilities in the app Postman. If we go to Postman at postman.co, there is a capability now to use Postman online through a web browser. As you can see here, I just log into my Postman account, and first thing I want to show off today is there's different workspaces you can create and organize. I'm going to start off in my personal workspace here and demonstrate just a simple get capability here. We can create a new request by clicking this plus tab here, and I have a URL to a geocoder service here. So I can paste this URL to the geocode server into the get line. There's different methods that you can select here, get, post, and things. And as soon as I paste that URL in, then we see that it has broken down the inputs into the different parameters of the URL. And here I'm just going to hit send, and as you can see, it's going to come back with the JSON response from that service here. Now, one of the newer capabilities that we're excited about and that we've worked with is the ability to collaborate as a team. So Michael and I have created a team workspace here. So if I go here and select the team workspace, I can go over here and we can have our separate collections, APIs, environments, mock servers, and everything associated with our specific workspace that we're working on together. One of the cool capabilities about this is that as I'm working in this workspace, Michael can be signed in and viewing the same information, the same requests at the same time, and we can collaborate to create a different environment together. I'm going to start off here today creating a new collection. This collection is going to be the basis of what we're going to create as an API for our web app. Starting off, I'm going to call this the My Person collection. And as soon as we create that collection, then we're going to create a new request and add it into this collection. For this request, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a URL, and we're going to do a get operation, and we're going to specify an ID of 2. So this is going to send off a request, and this here is environmental variable. Currently this is unresolved, but we'll solve that problem in a little bit. So based on this new request that I'm sending off, and we'll rename this request to the get person request. What we can do then here is we can go into the get person and we can add an example response for that request. So this capability here is giving us the ability to create kind of a mock server API on the fly. So here we have this example response, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in and create a little JSON snippet here of what the response would look like coming back from this service. And I'm going to format it there as JSON. One thing I wanted to do here is I want to add the content type that's returned from the service as JSON, just to make sure that the response coming back when we request this is the correct encoding content type. So now that we have this person collection and we've created the get request and the example request, what we can do now here is we can go into mock servers and we can create a new mock server based off of that collection request. So we select create a mock server, and we can go in here to the My Person Collections server, and we'll call this server My Test Server. Once we create this server, first one thing to note is that it's going to create an environment based off of this. So we can save this mock server URL as an environmental variable, which will resolve that unresolved URL earlier. Here we're going to create the mock server. Once we create the mock server, as you can see here, we don't have any mock server calls yet, but it will log these requests as necessary. One cool thing that we can do here is it has the URL to this mock server. This URL here was just generated and is available for requests publicly. So what we can do is we can take this URL, we can do a get and the to, and as you can see here, we get back our JSON from our mock server that we just created on the fly. Now that we have our mock server created, we can go back to our collections. And what we can do here is we have our example request for get person under our person collection. And what we want to start with is we want to go to environments and select our new test server environment. What this is going to do is it's going to resolve that URL environment variable that we created earlier. And now, as you can see here, when we mouse over it, it has the new value of the mock server in there. Now, based on this, we can send off this GET request to the mock server, and as you can see here, we'll get back the JSON example request that we created the mock server based off of. After we create this response, then what we can do is we can go back to the mock server. And as you can see here, if we refresh the mock server, you can see that it will show the different calls to the server that were made. This first request was the browser tab request, and the second one is the request to through the collection example request. After that, what we can do is we can go down under the collection docs for the server, and as you can see here, there's full documentation for the server we created, including the request and response and different parameters. What's kind of cool now is now that we've created this environment in this collection, what we can do is we can go into this request here, and under the code here, we're able to select and generate a code snippet for different parts of different languages and send off a request for that specific language, which we will use when we are doing this next section.
The next tool we wanted to show you was Code Sandbox, which is an in-browser development environment. For all of our JS API examples, we use Codepen, which is a pretty flexible development environment for just exploring the features of a new service or something. As you can see here, it just has a whole HTML page and does show what you're doing over here on the side. But Code Sandbox goes a little deeper into it. Let me just go ahead and sign in. I see you sign in using GitHub or Google. This allows you to kind of just associate your accounts with your sandboxes. Once you're in, you can go ahead and click Create New Sandbox. And as you can see, they've already got a set of templates here that you can use to create your service or your new tool. You can see they're basically based around JavaScript APIs, things like Reason, Svelte, Angular, things like that. They also do have a Node HTTP server, so you can do server-side coding, things like that as well. If you have a GitHub project or you see another GitHub project online, you can actually import that GitHub project into Code Sandbox just by pasting in the URL in here. Let me demonstrate the interface by creating a brand new sandbox, and let's create a Node server just to show you some of the server-side, show you that it does in fact do server-side functionality. As you can see right here, it's installing a new container. It's compiling in, and it just gives a simple hello world message. You see over here on the left, we have a complete list of files. Of course, if we click on them, they simply open them up. As we make changes to the files, they'll be made in real time. So if I did made the change, you can see there it did a rebuild, and now if I refresh the browser, it will change the name. It will change the name of or what I entered in. We can also add in new Npm dependencies by either typing in our dependency here, or I can click on this little hamburger icon and simply enter in. Let's go ahead and add in request just for now. You'll see it goes ahead and downloads it in, does a fresh build, and now I can go enter it in. As you can see, once I include request in, it does do autocomplete for things like known functions, and then once we have it in here as well, it will do an autocomplete, and it will also show us or give us hints as to what kind of contents can go into the requests. So this is a very simple example. We've set up something a little bit more complex here in the future. We set up a little something complex just to show you kind of what this can do. This is a simple application we stood up that basically pans to an Esri office once you click this Locate Esri button. So I can click it here and it moves over here. We wrote this using React and TypeScript based off of one of the templates we had here. You can see we've included in several libraries here on the side. One interesting thing too is you can click on this Open a New Window, so you can get an idea of what the full screen app will look like. And you can see it's here, and again it has all the functionality of the original one. You can see we have our browser console down here as well. Also, another thing we have is the idea of a responsive preview, which means that I can open this up and then start switching to other formats, so I can get an idea of what the app is going to look like on other formats. Another nice feature is we have the concept of live editing. So for example, if I wanted to share this and have Nathan join me, I can simply copy this link, and I'm just going to go paste this link over into a chat window we have open with each other. And so basically all he needs to do is click on the link, and there you can see him right there. Once we have that down here, or once he's in, I can go ahead and make him an editor. And you can see now I can see his cursor, so if he makes any changes to this, I'll see them in real time. So it's a great way to kind of like work collaborative on your software, have more than one person can look over the code at one time. Just to kind of show this too, we can also work with other services. In addition to this, we're already looking at kind of a geolocator service for this, but we can actually take this person request that we worked on earlier in the earlier part of the presentation, and we can integrate that into this lookup code. As you can see, what I have here is right now the lookup code, let me collapse the files here, just is looking for a hard-coded piece of JSON, but we can actually call this Postman service that we set up earlier by going to the code here, getting this fetch snippet. Go ahead and copy this in. Oops. Well, actually, we can just copy it by clicking this little icon right up here. Pull this in. Instead of having that, we'll go ahead and just going to comment that out for now. Copy in this. Now this is, don't believe, we'll do let equal await. We'll go ahead and get rid of this old code here. And then we'll do await response JSON. Now you notice when I save, it'll automatically reformat the code. Also, you'll notice that it's throwing a warning error for request options. It's probably because this is TypeScript and we pasted JavaScript in TypeScript, so it's not sure about the type. But now, if I click on the Locate Esri button, instead of going to Redlands, yep, it'll go to the DC office in Vienna, Virginia. And again, this is all saved up here, and if we need to, we can also export out a version of it by going to export to zip. And we can just export that out to a zip file that we can then pull into a full-fledged IDE or send it off to somebody else we want to look at it.
Great. The next thing I wanted to talk about today is just now that we've gone over some of the exciting features in some of those online collaborative websites and rapidly created an app and an API there, I want to talk over some of the new features available in the Chrome DevTools. For those of you who don't know and haven't used them before, Chrome DevTools is the developer tooling available in the Chrome web browser for debugging and inspecting different web apps. You can see here they have a lot of documentation and an active community around the tools, and so I highly encourage you to check those out sometime. But first, what we're going to do today is we're going to launch back into our code sandbox in the app that we created earlier. We're going to wait for that to load. And then once that loads, what we're going to do is we're going to open that in a new window and wait for that to load. This is what the web app would look like to an end user in a web tab. So what we're going to next do is to launch the Chrome DevTools, I'm going to hit F12. And what it launches to here and is selected is the Lighthouse Tool. Now this tool is a very helpful tool that is relatively new. Sometimes it can be hard to determine what to do in a web app, whether it's improvements to make or best practices to implement. And this tool can help you figure out what to do and how to implement those changes, whether it's a best practice or performance improvement to the app. As you can see here, it has both desktop and mobile generation. Today we're going to generate the desktop report to see the performance and characteristics of that. Once Lighthouse starts running and generating that report, it generates it, including statistics for different scenarios like without internet access or with JavaScript not available. As you can see, it's testing different bandwidths. So here's the generated report that's available. As you can see, we scored high in the accessibility and best practices and search engine optimization. The performance here is a little bit on the lower side, but I would anticipate that from a public site like Code Sandbox and not having this deployed to a production environment. So scrolling through here, you can see different metrics of the performance, whether it's the time to paint the first content to the screen and the traces. It does give you useful metrics as well for JavaScript that's in the site but not used, as well as CSS that can be cleaned up. Scrolling down here, it has great accessibility analysis as well for sites that need to be accessible to a wide range of audiences. There's progressive web apps and the metrics around those, including HTTPS and other best practices, and the generated statistics for the request, the emulation. So following on to that, the next feature I'd like to cover in Chrome DevTools that's newer is a lot of developers run into issues with cross origin resource sharing errors. This site is a site that you can go to. It's enablecores.org, and it has snippets for the server and client to implement cores. But today we're going to open the test, and what this is a local emulation of a cores server. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable the dev tools again, and we're going to go to the network tab. One of the newer features in Chrome DevTools is the ability to debug and display errors regarding cores. So here we're going to send off a request with cores enabled. As you can see, the status is 200 OK, and the request worked and was fine. Now we're going to introduce an artificial cores error by disabling the cores in the site, and we're going to send the request again. And as you can see now, in the Chrome developer tools, it does highlight and specify a cores error specifically, and doing a mouse over of that error does show that it is missing the allow origin header. This is helpful for quickly triaging and figuring out why a request is failing. Previously, the error that would be generated by Chrome for cores error was not very helpful, but now it is able to give you that info and specifically what header is off.
The final thing we wanted to show you wasn't necessarily a single tool, but a list of kind of smaller tools and sites that can help you improve your websites in various different ways. The first one is, I think it's Accessibility Coffee or A11Y Coffee. I don't quite know how to say it. But it's basically just a website, a simple website that describes how to improve your web accessibility. That is making your website more available for people with, say, color blindness or people who use screen readers. It does have like a nice intro, but the section that I was really interested in was this quick wins section, which basically just gives you kind of the top, so here's 6 items that people, or the top kind of gotchas that come to web accessibility. Things like making sure that your colors contrasts is high enough so that people with color blindness or monochromatic vision can see it correctly or can see your web page correctly. Or things like having alt text for all of your images so that somebody using a screen reader can actually see like what the images looks like, or empty links, things like that. Just a good walkthrough. I know I've gotten a few reading through this. I had a couple of head slap moments like, oh, I do that a lot, so I'm gonna make sure to try and do that a lot less in the future. But good reading for improving your accessibility. The next tool is Paladin.com. Paladin.com is a web-based color picker, which helps you find good kind of color compositions or color for your website. Basically, it lets you create a little palette based off of your selections. So I can move this circle around here too. You'll see it change the hue. I can also make it a darker or lighter by sliding this back and forth. Right now I have a monochromatic, but I can add in a complementary color if I wanted to, and that will change obviously as I turn this around. I can also add in adjacent colors, triad of colors. Basically it basically helps you come up with a nice color theme that is balanced and looks good, or looks good amongst each other. Also underneath this presets right here, we see once we pick a hue, we can also go ahead and start picking other colors. Like we can pick a dark neon color or pastel or something like that. Again, just another way of selecting the different kinds of colors. Also, once we're over here too, we can go under vision simulation and we can start seeing what our colors are going to look like under various degrees of color blindness. So again, we can see, it kind of simulates what it's going to look like to somebody who has a high level of colorblind or is colorblind. We can also go under preview and select default with text, and that'll bring up an actual overlay some black, gray, and white text on the screen. And as you can see, when we get up into here, you can see it's the gray text kind of goes away in some of these lighter colors. So maybe we want to be careful about that. Oh, and one last thing we notice too is, like, as I move my mouse around, it will actually give you the color codes for each of these colors, so that they're easy to, you can then implement them in. And one last other thing too is that if you go under export, you can export it as a table, but you can also export it as just a simple CSS file, so it'll give you the actual colors as CSS tags. The last tool, it's not really a tool, it's a bunch of small tools, but it's a neat website called tiny-helpers.dev. And basically it's a bunch of online tools to help web developers do various tasks. As you can see, they're all organized by different categories and different tags. It's being updated all the time. I know using the site, I was able to find this nice website called Regexer, which if you click on it, it's basically just an online regular expression editing tool or exploration tool. So you can basically create your regular expression here, go ahead and just look down, or just basically highlight all the text. Like here you can see it's kind of finding all the text with multiple capital letters somewhere in it. But as you change this expression, it'll edit the text down below. But again, that's just mostly just from tinyhelpers.dev, just a bunch of really simple websites that, or really small tools that can help you with your websites.
Well, it's been great getting to show you these things and tools for the modern web developer. We hope they help you in the future as you develop.
If you could, please provide your feedback for this session by clicking on the session survey link directly below the video. It really helps us out. And please enjoy the rest of the Developer Summit.